Greetings. This is Judy Tucker from NWOET, and today I'm going to be reviewing the many resources on InfoOhio's site for the presentation called Eliminating Research Dread. If there's anything that I've heard teachers complaining about over the years, and they do complain once in a while, it's how much they don't look forward to having their students do a research project because the students seem to not really enjoy or want to get engaged in such activities. I didn't have a lot of experience with research as a teacher. I was a family and consumer science teacher, and of course started out as a home ec teacher and reading teacher, but the main research we had to do was finding out if the difference between which kind of yeast worked best for our job, the quick Fleischmann's or the original. Those kind of things didn't take a lot of time, although in the early days there wasn't the internet to check out things like that. So I'm going to be sharing my screen and going right into InfoOhio, which is Ohio's pre-K to 12th grade digital library, free to all students, parents, and teachers here in Ohio. So let's get started with sharing my screen. And we'll dive right into something I want to cover. When I did research in high school that teachers would assign, this was our go-to, the Reader's Guide to Periodical Literature at our local library. And then we would look up magazine articles that were in the topic we were researching, and then that would lead us to actual print magazines. I'm not sure how many people still in the classroom that remember these readers' guides. And I was very surprised to see an image from 2018 of a reader's guide. So maybe there's still one for 2021, but I'm sure they don't get the kind of use they got back in the day. So let's go to InfoOhio. This is the 9 through 12 page, and this presentation is going to be focusing on research in high schools. This is the homepage now for InfoOhio's newly designed. Now we have an educator link right here on the main page instead of having to scroll down, and they've also added a parents page for resources and support, because I think that's very critical. Almost as much as students knowing about InfoOhio is that their parents know about it and know all the research that is and resources that are there for their students. So we're going to go right into the 9 to 12 resources that came up. And this site changes from time to time, depending on which resources become available. Many of them are purchase resources with yours and my tax dollars. And we always hope that every 2 years, the state legislature will pass enough funding to continue these resources, because this is just something awesome that I would never want to be without, as far as having online resources that, you know, remembering using the Reader's Guide, you would find, okay, Time Magazine, the April issue from 1995, and you'd go and find the pages of the article you were looking to find, and somebody had ripped it out, or the magazine wasn't even there. Libraries had to spend a tremendous amount of time keeping those magazines in order and trying to keep people from tearing out the pages. But in 1998, someone in their brilliant mind decided we could do things online with digital resources that would take the place of some of this work that students had to do for finding resources. So let's delve right in. And I'm going to start the one at the bottom of this the middle column. And this is a course that InfoOhio staff has designed and modified and improved over the years. It's called Research for Success, or R4S. It's a blended learning course that has 6 modules, and it's very rigorous. In fact, they recommend it for juniors and seniors, or even college students who are struggling with research, or just needing to know how to do high quality research. I always direct teachers to first time in on any of these resources is to click the more info button right here in the right corner of every one of these InfoOhio resources. It leads you to a page that is mainly meant for teachers to give, say, here's a teacher's guide. And also there is a learning pathways course about research called What is Inquiry? So if you're needing additional hours, contact hours, or professional development, you might want to check out this course. It will help you understand more about the Research for Success course, and also the Go, Ask, Act, and Achieve and other InfoOhio resources for students that help with the inquiry process, which of course is part of the very critical part of doing research. If you got into it, you would see that you could get 4 contact hours by completing a list of exercises and activities. You can see all the different parts. It's expected to take you approximately 4 hours, and then you take an assessment. There's no project with it. You get a certificate for 4 hours if you successfully complete the assessment. And you see right here is using Go and our Research for Success to make evaluating information easy. So that's just right there in this little get more info. So let's just go back to here and go right into Research for Success and open it up. Now you can just click on the button on that 9 to 12 page and get into it directly, but I wanted to take you through to show you the assistance that they have for teachers. Okay, this is the online blended course. In other words, you would probably want to do some of these things in class and then some of them assign as online work. It could be done all online if the student is working remotely or taking an online course, but there are these 6 modules and you can read the different titles, but there's an introduction for teachers and an introduction for students here that give further information. And just to delve into, let's say, selecting the best, selecting the resources is the target of module 3. Again, a teacher can take any of these sections and use it in their classroom. So maybe you're not needing to use the entire course, Research for Success, but you want to find an article about evaluating resources. Well, here are 4 videos that you could check out, review, and maybe one of them would fit exactly what you're looking for. This one's interesting, of course. This is a video tutorial, the CRAP test. And it's what they've done is they found resources from all over the online that fit their different goals of each one of the different modules. And resources, of course, click on them, go right to them. They've done the research for you. So just to say, the students do not have to do the whole thing to become effective. And there's 3 parts to each one of the modules: the learn part, the practice part, and the master part. So in this part, there is really no interactive activities for any of these things right here, but I know that you could even modify some of these videos depending on where they're located, if you could make them, if they are downloadable, and use something like Edpuzzle to put some questions in them to make them more interactive. But again, this is a very intense set of modules. That's why they say 11th and 12th grade. And I've heard it's most successful and effective if students actually are doing it as part of a research project rather than just doing the modules apart from any assignment for a research project. So that's Research for Success. And again, the teacher materials are quite extensive as well to help you teach the online part. So we're going to close that up and show you something that your students could use as well, especially 9th and 10th that aren't using the Research for Success course, and that is Go Ask, Act, and Achieve. And it is alphabetical here, so let's see how many they put. It depends on the resolution of your screen, how many. So it's at the top of the middle column. Go Ask, Act, and Achieve, and it divides it into the 4 modules: Ask, Act, and Achieve for doing a research project. And what they've included in this are all kind of documents, videos. We'll go into evaluating my sources under the ACT section. And you'll see that there's some Google Documents. This one looks like it might be a PDF. When it's read, it's a PDF. The ones that are just the blue Google Docs, those are actually ones that can be downloaded and made a copy. They give you view it rights. So let's look at this first one here. You could click on the Google Doc or the open, and some of them, I mean, many of them could be printed out if you still have access to a copier and you want to print it out. Some of them are interactive and have things to fill in. So this, you can put it in your Google Classroom. And for instance, this one right here, I believe is one that gives you viewing rights to the document. So the student, put this in the Google Classroom, and the student has to make a copy under File, make a copy, and then they can fill in the different parts here after you provide instruction. So there's a lot of those. In this particular one, I don't see a video, but some of them will have a little picture of a video at the top here. So there are videos. I think it might have been under Where Do I Find Trustworthy Information? So these are all individual, yep, see, talking to databases. There you go. And of course, they are going to cover many of the resources in InfoOhio library, for instance, the Explorer for grades 9 through 12, which we're going to be going over very quickly later today, Point of View Reference Center, because this was created by InfoOhio's staff, many of which were media specialists and teachers ELA teachers, and they designed this together, this Go Ask, Act, and Achieve for any 9th through 12th grade classroom doing research. So we'll just close some of these tabs. Going back to the 9 through 12 section here, I cannot do this presentation without making sure that you know about iSearch. And again, I'm going to go into the More Information tab and explain that iSearch searches nearly all of InfoOhio's resources in a single search box. The ones I know that are not included are the foreign language encyclopedias, and there are some other ones that the company doesn't have the ability to allow a search through their materials for the iSearch tool. If you want to know a lot about the iSearch tool, you can click on Educator Guide to iSearch, but I hope that students learn that students here in Ohio learn that this is a much safer and quicker way to get quality resources for their classroom over using Google or DuckDuckMoose or any of those other search tools that are out there on the web. You've got a lot of professional development materials. If teachers want to know about iSearch and gain, again, certificate for contact hours, they can click on this and they can go in Now, this is a self-paced 3-hour class, so you do not have to do it all at one time. But again, here are the different components in the table of contents, and then there is an assessment at the end. And if you successfully complete, I believe it's 80% of the assessment items successfully, then you will get that 3-hour certificate. And notice it's listed at the beginner stage. So if you've never used iSearch, or you even want to introduce it to your students because you know how great it is, you could even use parts of these learning pathways classes with your students if the more information page did not have enough or wasn't to the level that you hoped it would be. But there's many lessons, YouTube videos, and so forth to show your students if you've not used iSearch before. So just a real quick tour through iSearch. We'll just do something easy to type here. But iSearch is located on the homepage of InfoOhio. It's located on the each grade bands page. And there's also a separate link if you want to put that in your Google Classroom or other learning management system. Okay, when you do a search in iSearch, you come up with some different tabs. The first tab is different than, it may be different than what you see here for me. I'm entering as a general Ohio user rather than a user from an individual school. If I was sitting in my local school here, Lakota local schools, it would show the books from that were in the school's library. They only have one library, pre-K to 12. Some schools have multiple libraries. It would show all those books, and you could actually search in an individual library if you have elementary libraries, or you could search all of it. You can limit that search. It would be down in this section here. But because I'm not in a school, sitting in a school right now, there's no login needed whatsoever anymore for InfoOhio to get into your school's library like this. But the school does have to use the InfoOhio's library cataloging system, which is run by Cersei Dynex. And there are other ones that schools have, like Follett is one I can think of, that if your school is not using the one from InfoOhio, you would just have this ebooks and videos shown up here. And also you have encyclopedias, basic sources. I think the high school for doing research would probably use the basic sources and the advanced sources. And if it's a topic that has relation to the STEAM initiative or the STEM initiative, you might want to check the resources here that targets more of those STEAM and STEM resources. And you have all kinds of limiters that you can narrow down the search, because cells, we had, if we go into encyclopedias, we have over 5,000. Basic sources, we have 174,000. And those give you resources for magazines, newspapers, biographies, reviews, primary source documents. So if you only wanted to see the 6 primary source documents, there they are, that have to do with cells. So obviously, there isn't a lot of primary source documents that deal with cells of any kind. So that's iSearch. And if the students want, they can go in then to each article and download them. They can share them. You can share them with the Google Classroom or the link with the learning management system. There's all kind of tools over here on the side. And there's always the Google Classroom one that you could put it into an assignment, announcement, materials, whatever section of your Google Classroom you want. And if you use another learning management system, even though they say Google Classroom is not an official learning management system, you can get a permalink that you can use in whatever learning management. It's just an extra step that you would have to copy and paste that in. So, and you also have the ability to translate these resources from InfoOhio in this particular collection to one of, I didn't count them, but well over 50 different languages. So that's iSearch, and just make sure your students know it's there, and that will be easier for them to complete their research. So going back to the 9 through 12 resources. Another important one that students in 9 through 12 need to know about, and that's Explora for 9 to 12. There's also one for grades 6 to 8. So if you have students from that are, say, reading at a lower level, you could go to the 6 to 8 as well. You would have lower ones, but here's the Explora. Again, the more information button will give you different techniques to use with Explora. It's an EBSCO research, and there's even InfoHio makes research easy with Explora that the students could investigate. But this is where, when you do an iSearch, they get all the primary source documents is from EBSCO. But you see they've got a newer looking homepage. But again, if you do a search for cells, you're going to come up with some of the same ones that you found in iSearch, because it does search the EBSCO things. One thing you'll see that might be a little different from that iSearch is in the EBSCO, you can limit it to the years, and you can again see how many of these different resources were found of these different source types, and it will let you limit the Lexile range. So again, if you have students that you know that are even in 11th or 12th grade that are reading more in the level of a middle school student, you can click the particular range and it will pull out those resources for the students to use. Or you want newer materials in the last 2 years instead of just from 1997 until the current time. So again, now we're down to 181 as far. So Explora is an awesome research tool the students need to know about. So going back to our resources for 9 through 12. Okay, click back one. And that is a new one this year. That's the EBSCO High School Collection eBooks. Again, go in and see what the information they will give you. They've got a tutorial here. They've got some permalinks and things like that, the exporting the ebook pages to your Google Drive, because you can take pages of the book or a chapter of the book and put it into a Google Drive or even Classroom. But there are over 12,000 books through this collection, and we'll just pick some that are highlighted today instead of doing a search. But this one is called Eat That Frog for Students, 20 Ways to Stop Procrastinating and Excel in School. I thought that was a pretty interesting title. The formats are pretty much this for each one of the books: PDF, full text, which they can use right on their Chromebook, their iPad, whatever tool, and their phones, their cell phones. And then there's also the EPUB full text, which is, oh, I didn't really want to download it, but one that can be put on Kindles and other kind of book reading devices if they would happen to have one, or you have some in your school for use. But again, here's the table of contents. I can click on a part of it and start reading immediately without any downloading whatsoever. So if I don't want to download the PDF for my computer, I can do that. Now, one of the advantages of downloading a PDF or looking at the PDF version is you're going to get the drawings and images just like as if you took a picture of that page in that book. So I'm excited to see all these books. There's, to be honest with you, in the educator section, there's even a collection of books, ebooks for teachers. And I don't know exactly how many are in there, but if you go in the educator link right on the homepage of InfoOhio, you can, it was my version was up in the top right corner, the link to the educator ebooks. And this beats your library, your local library. I don't want to down local, be a downer for local libraries, but most of them have a certain limit on how many books or copies of each book that you can get. And somebody was telling me a book they had waited 3 months now on a bestseller at their local library, to just get the book in the e-version of the book. So these books, there's no limitations on, of course, you know, they're probably not the best sellers right now at this time, but that's the high school ebook collection. And it's pretty cool to be able to have that resource, and that was added this year. Okay, just looking through all the other resources that are on the 9 to 12 collection, and some of them are on the 6 to 8 also, but one that is interesting and may be helpful for research, and that's a Point of View Reference Center, where they give, I'm going to go right into it instead of going into the more info section, but they have 2 different views, sometimes done by the same group of people on popular subjects. And you can look, I didn't really need to go into one of them, but you can look at all the different topics. Let's just say students are doing a research project on some aspect of the crisis, the climate crisis, if you want to call it that, or the Keystone Pipeline. Now, I'm not sure how up to date that is, if they have the recent happenings in the last year, but they're going to, well, let's say fracking. It's going to give 2 different viewpoints, point and counterpoint, research first, and then you go over to the right-hand side and then what the experts say, and then the different point and counterpoint of, is fracking good? Is it a danger to the environment? What's going on? And like I said, sometimes they will see that the same person can write 2 opposing viewpoints based on how they take the facts of the research. So Point of View Reference Center would be something I would definitely check to see if it had some information on a topic I was researching. Other things, if it's a STEM topic, there is one new science resource, and that's Today's Science. That would be very helpful doing research for STEM topics. And then the other one is Science Online, but they're both by the same company. Science Online and Today's Science are both info-based products, and what they have might differ from what EBSCO has as far as the STEM collection. So they'd want to check that out as well. But doing a research on your research, starting with iSearch, is a good way to pick things from all of those different resources. And of course, there's the standard World Book that we've had since I was a child, and they put the advanced and the student one in the collection of 9 to 12. So that's just a little bit about doing research. Of course, I didn't even bring out the Academic Search Premier, but excuse me. But there are so many resources the students have with InfoOhio that it almost makes doing research fun. So hopefully you've learned a few things about the availability of resources for helping students eliminate that dread that when they think of the word research. Thank you so much. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and say good day. Thank you.